thank you so much for speaking with me on this very historic week as we watched the mourning for Her Majesty. And I wonder, for you see it through such a different prism. What is the one thing you hope the King has inherited, what quality, from his mother?
Well, before I answer that, I would just like to say that on behalf of Canadians, we send our deep condolences to the royal family and to the people of the United Kingdom. And the one thing that I would probably, there's a few things that I would say, but one thing would be her commitment to service and how open and kind and welcoming she was to the public. And it was very easy to talk to her. And I think that that was her way of being able to bring in the discussions that she wanted to have with the public and with other people around, both in Canada, because after all she is our queen as well, and the outpour that I've been hearing and seeing on television has been pretty overwhelming. She's an astonishing, she is leaving an astonishing legend. She is a legend.
You had an opportunity most people didn't have, which was to be with her in person. And what would you say, when you reflect, would be the overriding memory that you will keep with you of Her Majesty?
It was her kindness and her welcoming nature when we went to visit her, and also how she continued to articulate the issues around the world. She understood what was going on, and she was up to date, and it was really an incredible conversation, because it went from family to what's going on around the world, and it was the memory that lives with me. And also I think that the fact that, you know, I was able to come and see her a year after I was installed is something that I will treasure. It was a very special trip and a visit to Her Majesty for both my husband and I went.
And that was during COVID. So paint that picture for us, that meeting.
It was almost at the end of COVID, and of course we were still taking a lot of precautions, but we were able to take our masks off, because she had also had COVID and we had it as well. So we thought, we just kept our distance and figured we were pretty safe. So, but it was her, I think, her ability to open her doors and make you feel like you can talk to her about anything you want to talk to her about. And I've always felt that about Her Majesty, because I've met her in other locations in Canada, and I was able to discuss with her. She once saw a pin that I was wearing, and it was an order of Greenland that I got as a leader for the international organization. She came over to me and asked me what the pin was for. So we had a nice chat about Greenland. So just on the spur of the moment, you know, so.
That curiosity.
Yeah.
What about the issues you talked, she talked about issues around the world, the issues at home though? This outpouring of love has on a lot of levels overshadowed for a lot of Indigenous people their own history, a heavy history, your own history. What do you think non-Indigenous people should best understand about that complex relationship between the Crown and our Indigenous communities?
Well, I think first of all I have to say that the Queen is loved all across Canada, including Indigenous people love the Queen, and they have said that over and over again in their own way for the past week. And I think that when you look at the residential schools, the Crown Indigenous relations, that's at a level where you have to continue the dialogue. And she has started that dialogue, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And when the king was still Prince Charles, he came to Canada in May, and he was able to really have some good discussions with some of the Indigenous leaders. And he's made a commitment to continue the work that is needed to rectify and move forward in the relationship between the Crown and Indigenous people. I guess one of the reasons why there has been controversy is through colonization, the Inuit to Crown or the Indigenous to Crown relationship hasn't always been positive, especially when you look at the treaties that were signed and the fact that Indigenous people have always said they were never implemented. So those discussions have been hard, and they continue to be hard. And now with the unmarked graves being found in terms of children that went to residential school, that has brought another level of anxiety and mistrust to some degree. So these are difficult conversations that we have to have as a country. And if King Charles can be part of that discussions, I think that would help us move forward in building our renewed relationship.
There's absolutely a reckoning, as you say, in Canada as a result of the unmarked graves. And I think also people see this transition now and they say, is this the moment? Indigenous people say, is this the moment? If this relationship is constitutional and not emotional, what would your guidance be as his representative in Canada on how to move this forward?
I have started the work since I was installed a year ago, and we're working towards bringing together people to talk about what's going on, because it's not just about politicians, it's about Canadians, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians. That conversation has to come together, and we need to have a much better understanding of who we are, who are Indigenous people, who are non-Indigenous Canadians, and to be able to understand one another and respect one another and give that space so that it will allow our country to thrive in a way that will be equal opportunity for education, equal opportunity for jobs, equal opportunity for business. All these issues that are part and parcel of this Crown Indigenous relations is really something that we as a country need to deal with that, but at the same time, because the history shows that we are still part of the monarch as one of the Commonwealth countries, we need to bring the king into the conversation and to be able to talk to them about how do we move forward together.
Is it frustrating? I mean, this is an agreement, if you call it that, between the Crown and Indigenous people that goes back to like the 1700s. It's 2022. Do you think perhaps Queen Elizabeth should have done more?
It's hard to speak in hindsight, I think, because I think the Queen in her 70-year reign did what she had to do. And to me, that allows us to go to the next level. She has built this fertile land where we are now able to talk to the Canadian government on Indigenous Crown relations. In fact, there's a process in place now where the Prime Minister participates in the process, and if that ground hasn't been built, it would be extremely difficult to have those conversations. In fact, if you look back 30, 40 years when I started working in this area, things have changed dramatically. And there's a lot more to be done. There's no doubt about that. There's a lot more hard work that needs to be done. But that conversation, that hard conversation, where there's respect on both sides, needs to happen. It really needs to happen as soon as possible, because now seems to be the right opportunity to open that dialogue.
And it certainly seems more than symbolic that at the state funeral there will be representatives in your delegation from the Inuit, Métis, and First Nation community. How did that come together?
Well, we've had discussions with different people in Canada, and with the Royal Highness as well. And he felt that we needed to have Indigenous representatives. And I think that the dialogue that he started when he came to Canada this past spring is where he left it. And now he's saying to us, we need to go further and move forward and have those discussions on reconciliation. And he says he's very committed to working with us. So, you know, time will tell, but we hope that that will be the case.
And I know that you had an opportunity to speak with him just the other day. How was that conversation? When you saw him in Canada, he was Prince of Wales, now he is King Charles III.
You know, his mother died, and it's a very sad time for him and his family. And we have to acknowledge that. And I felt that when I was talking to him, that there was a very deep sadness to him, and he was very thankful that Canadians were thinking of them and participating in many of the memorial events that we've been having in Canada. And in fact, there will be memorial events in Ottawa and across the country on Monday. So they're very well loved in many ways, and I think that he really appreciated that when I was talking to him.
Tomorrow will be a difficult day for you, or you tell me. You are going to have an opportunity to pay your personal respects as the Queen lies in state at Westminster Hall.
Well, I'm very saddened by Her Majesty's death, but at the same time, I feel that I need to honor her legacy, that this is something that we all have to do in our own way. So everyone will be going through that experience individually, privately, and it could be different for many people, but for me, it will allow me to think about her life and the commitment she made to being the longest reign in the UK as a queen. And I think in the United Kingdom, you see the outpouring of love over the days that have passed, the thousands and thousands of people that are, you know, made the commitment to say goodbye to her. So they wait for hours and hours. And to me, that is an indication that around the world, she is a very she was a very important leader. She was a world leader, not just a leader in the Commonwealth and the UK and Canada, but also in other parts of the world as well.
And that's kind of what I want to ask you finally. As a strong woman, what was it about her? I mean, I think we all learned something from her and the way she was a world leader, an icon, a mother, a grandmother. What do you think it was in her style or her approach that has created this, as you say, outstanding legacy? What was it that she brought?
She showed perseverance, commitment, and also she showed how you balance your family and your life. Although, you know, we are all in different situations in our lives, but we all have to find a balance somewhere, especially if we're a working mother or a working grandmother, as I am. But I think the fact that she was able to do that and to show the strength of a woman, because women leaders, you know, are becoming more evident, but we're still not there. And in her day, there weren't a lot of women leaders. And she showed everyone, all us women, she showed us that it could be done. And to convey that to all of us and to be so steadfast in her commitment, I think it allowed us to grow as women leaders.
So was she a feminist?
I don't think she was obviously a feminist, but it's like me. I don't show it obviously, but I'm a woman, so you have to, you have to look at how women are doing around the world, but you try and balance it with your other responsibilities, and I think that's what she did.
And I think we all learned from her.
Yes.
And we thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on Queen Elizabeth II. It's a sad week.
Yes. It's my pleasure to be here, but it's a sad moment for sure.